Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit, and if you are watching this video when you should be, it is Halloween or close to Halloween, and there's a Steam sale, as there always is with every possible holiday ever. This one runs until November the 1st, so you do not have a lot of time to jump on it, and it's a big sale as well. There are so many games in this list. However, I went through the list and I picked 10 for you. These are the 10 games that I really think you should get, either because the discounts are so incredibly heavy, or because the games are so very, very good, or anything in between, or a combination of the two. And there's also an honorable mention because I'm going to keep forcing this damn game down your throat until you accept it. So let's begin, shall we, with Painkiller Black Edition. 80% off, that's $2, €2 or £1.79. Do not be fooled by the complete pack, which is actually what Steam advertises. It's a trap. And the reason I say it's a trap is because all the games in that list, with the exception of Painkiller Hell and Damnation, are utterly dreadful. Yes, they are. They are incredibly bad, and you shouldn't go anywhere near them with a 10-foot barge pole. However, if you click through the link, you will notice that you can individually purchase Black Edition, which is the original Painkiller, plus the first expansion, which actually doesn't suck. Why should you get Painkiller? Because it's one of the best arcade FPS ever made. It takes away all of the maze-like nature of things like Doom, although it leaves stuff like secrets in the game, and replaces it with arena after arena of horrible gothic monsters, which you must kill with a variety of awesome weapons. Your default weapon is the Painkiller, which not only shoots kind of a grappling laser thing, which kills anything in its path, but can also be spun up into a whirling dervish of sawblade death. Not only that, but your default shotgun has 4 barrels, cause why the hell not? Each weapon has secondary fire, and it's got a bitchin' soundtrack. What else could you possibly need to know about Painkiller, other than the fact that all of the other games in the series are absolutely dreadful? Just get it. Seriously, you'll have a lot of fun with it. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, 75% off, that's $5, €5 and £3.74. When this game came out, it was a disappointing mess. It was the first game to ever come out using the Source engine, and it showed. Oh, did it show. It was unfortunately unfinished as well when it came out, because Troika, the company in question, went bankrupt. However, it's widely regarded as one of the best FPS RPGs of all time, and it's most certainly the best vampire game that you can possibly get on PC. It is an incredible role-playing game. So incredible, in fact, that it's had years of unofficial support, which included some of the ex-developers getting involved. Now, if you want to run this on Windows 7 and you want to run it properly, you really need some of the unofficial stuff. I've put a guide for you in the description below this video. I would strongly suggest that you use that. The unofficial patch is fantastic, and there are also plenty of mods which either fix content or add new content. You should really look into that. I absolutely love this game. It's got so many different options. It reminds me a little bit of Deus Ex in the way that it actually approaches morality and decision-making, and the way that you can change what's going on within the game. It's got some fantastic hub areas, great side quests, stellar dialogue across the board, and different ways to play as well, based on which of the vampire bloodlines you choose to follow. One of them is so hideous that you can't really go out in public, and it changes the entire nature of the game very much into a stealth assassination game, which is very different to the more social classes and things like that. It's incredible. You really should try it. It's definitely a lost treasure. And if you get the unofficial patches and you follow the guide, you should be able to get it up and running very nicely indeed. So a strong recommendation for that one. Bioshock and Bioshock 2, the franchise pack, 75% off. That's $10, €10 or £6.99, or half the price for either of the games. So buying the franchise pack won't save you any extra money, just bear that in mind. Just a little bit more convenient if you happen to not own either of them. I will still hold to this day that both of these games are better than Bioshock Infinite, and if you haven't experienced them, I'd strongly suggest that you do. Now's a pretty good time, particularly for Bioshock 2, because they've actually brought Minerva's Den, which is the fantastic DLC, to Steam, and they removed games for Windows Live, which was something that very much plagued both of those titles. The one thing that I would say about the original Bioshock on PC is that you should have a look at the PC Gaming wiki page for it, and have a look at some of the fixes, because it is a little bit dated and it had some widescreen problems back in the day. FOV and things like that can be dealt with via the .ini files, and you can disable things like the mouse acceleration as well. Strongly recommend that you look at the page for that. Regardless, they're two of the best exploration-based FPS that I've played. The gunplay itself is not as great as, say, dedicated first-person shooters, although I feel Bioshock 2 does a way better job at the combat than Bioshock 1 does, but the unique feel of each of those games, as well as the way that the different factions play off each other, makes the whole thing very interesting indeed. Far more so, I think, than the more linear nature of Bioshock Infinite. So now would be a good time to check both of those out. The only problem, I suppose, with the DLC is that they didn't discount that, which kind of sucks. If you could pick that up for $2.50, I think it would be worth it. So you might want to hold off on Minerva's Den for the time being. They'll eventually discount it, but for $10 versus the original price of the game being $5, it's not quite worthwhile, but it's still a really good DLC pack nonetheless. Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition, 75% off. That's $5, €5, and £3.74. I'll maintain to this day that this is the better version of the new Fallouts. It is better than Fallout 3. The world is perhaps slightly less well designed, but the dialogue and the quests are far better. This is what happens. Bethesda versus Obsidian. It always goes down this way. Bethesda creates a great world with lousy storyline, lousy depth, and terrible questing. Whereas Obsidian, weaker world design, way better questing, way better dialogue, and a bunch of bugs. Thankfully, those have all been pretty much resolved right now. The Ultimate Edition comes with all the DLC, which kind of varies in quality, but it's all worth playing regardless. And I think you'll enjoy the questing of Fallout New Vegas way more than Fallout 3. So if Fallout 3 put you off and you didn't decide to visit New Vegas, I feel that it would be in your best interests to give this one a try. It's extremely enjoyable and a really good time sink. Frankly, when it comes to writing interesting characters and quests in any RPG, I feel that Obsidian is top of the pile, ahead of BioWare, and certainly ahead of Bethesda. So I think you'll enjoy this one an awful lot. One other thing to mention is, of course, that there is a gigantic mod scene for both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, so that's worth investing in as well. Natural Selection 2, 75% off. That is $6.24, €5.74, and £4.74. So it's one of the only games that's actually fairly priced for the Europeans. So there you go. A lot of them are just dollar equals euro. This is awesome. And it's a game that still has an active community and is being actively supported. It's got such a crazy fanatical following that they have been donating money towards developing new free content for the game, which is just fantastic. And it's been very well supported by the devs. It recently had a free weekend. If you didn't get a chance to check it out then, this is a good chance to pick it up on almost the cheapest it's ever been. I did extensive coverage of this game prior to it coming out, and it's aliens versus humans with a commander on either side who can construct buildings as well as give orders and upgrades to their soldiers. So one guy is playing an RTS basically, but he's playing it with real people instead of units. And it really has this phenomenal kind of marine versus alien feel that you could perhaps remember from some of the earlier AVP games. And it does so very well. There's a lot of skill involved in it. There's a lot of more old school orientated design ideas there. No aim down sights and things like that. You know, sensible melee. And as a result, it becomes this really enjoyable game, and it's very different depending on which side you actually play on. Got a bit of a learning curve, but I will say that there are a lot more tutorial options this time around. When the game first came out, the tutorial was really weak, and there's a lot of friendly commanders who will actually help you out as well. Performance issues have, for the most part, been resolved. They weren't so great on launch. They're way better now, and the game's received significant content updates since then. So no question, now would be the time to jump into Natural Selection 2. Killing Floor, 75% off. That is $5, €4.49 in Tier 1, $3.74 in Tier 2, and £3.74. The best co-op zombie/monster/thingy killing action game ever. It really is so very good. I will fight you to the death on Killing Floor versus Left 4 Dead. I really will. I believe Killing Floor is a better game when it comes to just satisfyingly shooting mutants. It's so good at what it does, and it's had phenomenal content updates since its release. It's still going very strong with a bunch of mods as well as a lot of online support and plenty of servers available. The point of it is to survive wave after wave of monsters. It is to weld doors. It is to buy upgrades, and it is just so much fun. It has the best gunplay of any game I've ever played. Any. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating here. The guns feel so good, you don't understand until you've used them. You really, really don't. You cannot possibly. They feel amazing. The recoil on them is super satisfying. The sound assets are just spot on, and popping heads is just the most fun you can have. It escalates really well. Each class can be leveled up in order to gain more benefits. Then you can play harder difficulties using that. There is a large selection of weapons, far larger than there was on launch, and overall, I would strongly recommend that you get a few friends together, get Killing Floor, and have a whale of a time. The Swapper, 66% off. That takes it down to $5.09, €4.75, and £4.07. A lesser discount on this one, but it was cheaper to begin with, so that does knock the price down significantly. The reason I'm giving you a recommendation on this one is because it is one of the best indie games that's come out over the last few years. Incredibly well designed, unbelievably atmospheric, graphically gorgeous, and it has some very unique puzzling mechanics. The idea of that game is that you can clone yourself multiple times and you can use that to get past the puzzles, but the game asks some very interesting questions later down the line, and it's got an almost spooky vibe to it. I would strongly recommend it. It's something that you certainly should not ignore, and the fact that this was all made by a tiny indie developer out of Helsinki just blows my mind. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I would strongly recommend it. The Walking Dead, 75% off. That's $6.24, €6.24, and £5.24. With Season 2 having been announced and available for pre-order, I see no reason not to pick this one up right now. It's a really, really good time to do it. And of course, it is the complete season that is all 5 of the episodes for The Walking Dead. You don't get 400 days in that, and that hasn't been discounted either, but it's still very much worthwhile. I have said that I prefer The Wolf Among Us to The Walking Dead because I find the subject matter more interesting, but that should not take away from the fact that The Walking Dead is a really great example of the more modern way to do point and clicks. The character interaction and the dialogue in that game is second to none, and the graphic style is very unique as well, with a really cool graphic novel aesthetic to it. It also has some real tear-jerkers, I've got to say, and it does a great job making you feel invested in both your decisions and the characters you're interacting with. No question, I would recommend The Walking Dead. Sleeping Dogs, 80% off. That's $5, €5, and £4. This game is just great. One of my favorite games of last year, and a fantastic PC port for good measure, which has only got better since I last took a look at it with various patches. It looks incredible, but it also plays really well too. I love the driving, and I absolutely adore the hand-to-hand combat in this game. It's a little bit GTA-esque, a little bit less of the crazy mayhem, a little bit more of the individual character development, and surprising lack of gunplay, which is actually quite refreshing. Obviously, it's in Hong Kong, so you won't necessarily deal with as much gunplay in that particular game. Driving's so much fun, though. Character customization is a lot of fun, too. The writing's pretty damn good. The actual voice acting is fantastic, and it should be, considering who they've got on the voice acting list. And there's an awful lot to occupy your time with side quests and collectibles and things like that. I'd recommend getting Nightmare in North Point as well, because that is, one, a Halloween sort of themed DLC pack, and secondly, it's 80% off. And it's pretty cool because you're not dealing with the traditional ghosts and ghouls. It's very much Asian-themed horror, which I like a lot. That's a little bit unique. So, pretty good DLC for that one. And also, I would suggest that you grab yourself the high-definition texture pack, which is a free download, and you will see just how good this game actually looks. For the rest of the DLC, it's mostly 50% off. A lot of it's kind of junky. The stuff that you want to be looking at for story is Year of the Snake, as well as, of course, Nightmare in North Point. And I would also have a look at the Zodiac Tournament, which is a really cool martial arts movie-themed story DLC. Joe Danger and Joe Danger 2 the movie, 75% off the pack, which is $6.24, €5.74, and £4.24. You save a couple of dollars on buying the pack as opposed to buying them individually. Overlooked as hell, mostly because this game took ages to come to PC, honestly. But it's one of my favorite console games. It's incredibly fun. It reminds me of a mixture of Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Excitebike from the NES days. It's got so much content in it, and you essentially play a stuntman who is attempting to rebuild his career, and you get graded based on how well you do. Joe Danger the movie, you go through various movie sets and you have a bunch of sub-objectives, and you also have a bunch of different vehicles as well, including a minecart, skis, a jetpack, all of which handle completely differently. It's so much fun. Please don't ignore it. It's not a casual game. It's actually very, very difficult indeed, and there's a bunch of Steam content as well because they actually put the Steam Workshop into the game, so you should not be ignoring Joe Danger. Please do not. I don't think it got a fair shake on Steam, and now's a good time to pick it up for a fraction of the price. Alright folks, there's my 10 picks for the Halloween sale, which ends on November the 1st, but I would be amiss if I didn't tell you about Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons for 50% off. I will keep shoving this game down your throats whether you like it or not. You're gonna have to deal with it. It's my favorite game of the year. It's, I think, my favorite game of all time, and it blows my mind. And if you want to know why, you should go and watch the video that I did of it. WTF is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. And just play it. It's a couple of hours, and this is, of course, a good time to get it a little bit cheaper if you don't believe that a few hours is actually worth the $15 price point that they had on it originally. It is one of the best examples of marrying storytelling with game mechanics and controls that I have ever seen, ever. It's incredible. It really affected me in a big way, and I'm very glad that I played it. It's an experience, and I think that you should enjoy it as well. Alright folks, that wraps me up for the 10 picks from the Halloween sale. This ends on November the 1st, so you better get to it right now. Feel free to discuss other picks from the sale that you enjoy in the comments below this video. I'll see you next time.